I wasn't supposed to be home that night. The original plan was to stay over at my boyfriend's place, eat takeout, and pretend we weren't falling apart. But that plan derailed around 8:17 p.m. when he told me we needed to rethink things. No shouting, no crying, just a mutual, miserable silence, followed by me quietly grabbing my hoodie and walking out into the cold night air. By 9:30, I was back at the apartment I shared with Leo, slumped on the couch with a bag of gas station snacks and half a bottle of wine I found in the fridge. Leo was out, probably at the gym or on some casual date. He had a revolving door of those lately. I didn't care. I just wanted silence and a chance to disappear into whatever was on Netflix. I never made it to the second episode. Somewhere between the second handful of sour gummy worms and my third glass of wine, my body gave up. I passed out in the clothes I came in with, the throw blanket barely covering half my legs, the room lit only by the flicker of the TV. What woke me up wasn't noise. It wasn't light or a dream or even a full bladder. It was weight. Soft, warm weight, pressing down on me. At first, I thought it was part of the dream I'd just been having, a vague swirl of someone touching me, whispering something I couldn't quite hear. My eyes fluttered open slowly, heavy from wine and sleep, and my brain took a second too long to process what I was seeing. Leo. On top of me. Straddling me, kind of, but more like half kneeling on the couch, one leg bent beside my hip, the other bracing himself on the cushion. His face was close. Too close. His hair was wet, like he'd just showered. He smelled like eucalyptus body wash and warm skin, and his eyes, they weren't focused on mine, they were looking at my mouth. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't move. My body was still in that foggy zone between sleep and full awareness, and part of me thought maybe he tripped. Maybe he was looking for something. Maybe he didn't even know I was under him. But then his hand came up, slowly, cautiously, and touched the side of my face. His thumb grazed the corner of my mouth, and I knew this wasn't an accident. "Leo," I said, voice hoarse. He froze. For a second, I thought he might laugh and play it off, make some dumb joke, call me sleepyhead, and pretend this never happened. But he didn't. Instead, he said, very quietly, "I didn't think you were awake." I blinked. My heart was starting to catch up now, thudding loud in my chest. "I was," I said. "Now I am." Leo shifted slightly, but he didn't move away. His face still hovered inches from mine. "I heard you come in earlier," he said, voice low, like he was afraid of waking someone. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." That didn't explain why he was on top of me. He must have seen the confusion or disbelief on my face, because he smiled, just barely. "I didn't mean to," he began, then stopped. His hand was still on my cheek. "I can go," he said, but he didn't move, and neither did I. I didn't answer him. I think if I had, it would have made things real too fast, more real than I was ready for. Instead, I just looked at him, at the way his hair was still damp and clinging to his forehead, at the way his mouth was slightly parted, like he wasn't sure what I was going to say next, at the way his body was still pressed against mine, tense but not uncomfortable. He waited, like he needed permission to exist in this space with me. "You okay?" he asked again, softer this time. I nodded slowly. Rough night. Leo's brow furrowed a little, and he sat back just enough to ease some of the pressure off my chest. "Your ex?" I shrugged. "I guess he's officially my ex now." Leo didn't respond right away. He just stared at me, his fingers brushing my cheek again. Then, without thinking, he moved them into my hair, just lightly, like he was testing the line between comfort and something else. "You always do this," I muttered. His hand paused. "Do what?" "Wait until I'm too tired or too sad to question anything." That hit him. I could tell. His face pulled into a half-winced smile, and he lowered his gaze for a second. "I wasn't trying to take advantage of you," he said. "I swear." "I know. I did. We'd lived together for a year and a half. Long enough to see each other at our best and worst. Long enough that lines had started to blur a while ago. The problem wasn't tonight. It was the months of buildup. Those shared glances, The way we lingered a little too long in the kitchen, those nights when we accidentally ended up watching TV shoulder to shoulder until 2 a.m. I always thought it was just me, until now. Leo's hand dropped from my hair to my shoulder. He looked like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. "You're not drunk," I said suddenly. "Are you?" He shook his head. "Just got back from a run, showered, saw you passed out, and..." He trailed off. "You decided to climb on top of me?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He gave me a guilty smile. "I thought you looked peaceful." "That doesn't mean you can." "I know," he cut in quickly. "I didn't plan it. I don't know, man. You looked like you needed someone." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Leo shifted off of me, finally, settling into the space next to me on the couch. I sat up slowly, the throw blanket falling to my waist. The TV was still playing, but I couldn't focus on it. All I could hear was the quiet between us, thick and full of unspoken tension. "I'm not trying to mess with you," he said finally. "I know I joke around a lot, and I'm not always clear about things." I glanced at him. "But this," he continued, "whatever's been happening between us, I feel it too." I swallowed hard. "Is this a bad idea?" I asked. "Probably," he said, and then laughed, short and quiet. "But I'm kind of tired of pretending I don't want bad ideas." I looked down at my hands, twisting my fingers together, trying to ignore the way my chest felt tight, and then I felt his pinky brush against mine. Small, barely there, but intentional. His pinky hooked around mine and just stayed there. It wasn't a bold move. It wasn't like he grabbed my hand or pulled me into a kiss. It was just that one small touch. Light. Careful. Like he was trying not to spook me, like he was waiting to see if I'd pull away. I didn't. We sat there like that, for what felt like hours, but it couldn't have been more than a minute. The sound from the TV flickered in the background, some laugh track echoing through the room like a reminder that the world hadn't stopped spinning, even if mine kinda had. "You ever gonna say anything?" he asked, his voice low, almost playful, but I could hear the nerves tucked beneath it. "I'm thinking," I said quietly. "About?" I turned toward him. "What happens next?" Leo didn't smile this time. He just nodded, like he understood the weight of what I meant. This wasn't a hookup. It wasn't a rebound. Whatever it was, whatever it had the potential to be, it was something that had been simmering between us for months. "You don't have to decide anything right now," he said. "I'm not asking for whatever. I just needed you to know." I studied him. Even in the soft glow of the TV, he looked tired. Not in a worn-out way, but in the way someone looks when they've been holding something in for too long. And somehow, I knew he meant it. He wasn't trying to manipulate me or swoop in while I was down. He was just tired of hiding it. I leaned back against the couch cushion, still holding onto his pinky. "So what now?" Leo hesitated, then gently pulled his hand away. For a moment, I thought he'd backpedal, but instead, he stood up and held out his hand to me. I blinked at it. "Where are we going?" "To bed," he said. "You've been passed out on this couch for hours. It's gotta be killing your back." "That's your smooth move?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Walking me to bed?" "I didn't say anything about staying," he said, though his smile was just crooked enough to suggest otherwise. I stared at him for a second. Then, before I could second-guess myself, I reached out and let him pull me to my feet. He didn't let go. He led me down the hallway like we'd done this 100 times before, like this wasn't brand new territory. Like this space between our rooms hadn't felt like a canyon for the past year. When we got to my door, he paused. I looked up at him. "If you want me to go," he said softly, "just say it." I didn't. Instead, I opened the door, and I didn't close it behind me. I stood in the middle of my room, suddenly unsure what to do with myself. The air felt heavier now, not tense, just charged, like the kind of pause between thunder and lightning. Leo lingered in the doorway for a second longer before stepping inside, slowly, like he was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. I sat down on the edge of the bed. He stayed standing, hands in the pockets of his joggers, eyes flicking between my face and the floor like he wasn't sure what the rules were here. "You ever done this before?" I asked, his eyebrows lifted. "What?" "Be emotionally vulnerable for once in my life." I laughed, maybe a little too loud, and that seemed to break the tension. He grinned and finally sat beside me. "I've liked you for a while, you know." "Yeah," I said. "I think I did. I just didn't want to believe it." He tilted his head. "Why not?" "Because you're—" I trailed off. "What?" I shrugged. "You're everything I usually avoid. Confident, charming, disgustingly good hair. Too many flannels for one closet," he chuckled. "And you're everything I didn't know I was looking for. Quiet, smart. Kind of a disaster, but in a good way." I rolled my eyes. "Thanks." We sat there in silence for a beat, our legs barely touching. I could feel the warmth of him next to me, the subtle shift of the mattress every time he adjusted his weight. Then he said, "You don't have to kiss me, if that's what you're worried about." I turned to him. "That's not what I'm worried about." He looked at me carefully. "Then what?" "I'm worried that if I kiss you, I won't want it to stop." Leo didn't flinch. He didn't laugh or make a joke. He just reached up, slow and deliberate, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "I'm okay with that," he said. I leaned in before I had time to overthink it. The kiss was soft, hesitant at first, like we were both trying to figure out where we stood now that the truth was out in the open. His hand rested lightly on my jaw, his thumb brushing just under my cheekbone. I could feel the tension leave my shoulders all at once. He pulled back just enough to speak. "I've wanted to do that for a long time." I nodded, eyes still half closed. "You're a lot gentler than I thought you'd be." "Yeah, well," he murmured, "you bring that out in me." For a while we didn't say anything. We just laid back, fully clothed, tangled loosely under the blankets, like we'd done it a dozen times before. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like a mistake. It felt overdue. "I thought I lost you when you started dating that guy," Leo said quietly. "You could have just said something." I didn't know if you felt the same, didn't want to mess things up. I looked at him, really looked at him. His expression was open, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "We're way past that now." "Yeah," he said. "We are." And I didn't feel passed out anymore. I felt like I was finally waking up. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. Lying beside Leo felt natural, comfortable in a way that made me wonder how long we'd been unconsciously orbiting this moment. His hand found mine beneath the covers, and we just lay there, listening to the quiet, the creaks of the old radiator, the occasional sound of traffic outside. I was wide awake, but not restless. My body was still buzzing a little, like it hadn't fully caught up with what had just happened. But my brain? That was strangely calm. "You still awake?" Leo whispered. "Yeah." "Good. Thought maybe you passed out again and I'd have to crawl on top of you twice in one night." I huffed out a laugh, and he grinned. "Not sure I'd stop you," I said, quieter than I meant to. He looked over at me, his expression softening. "That's dangerous talk." "I've had a weird day," I replied. "I broke up with my boyfriend and made out with my roommate. You can forgive me if I'm not thinking straight." Leo raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're not thinking gay?" I burst out laughing before I could stop myself, and he joined in. That was the thing with Leo. He had this ability to make anything feel lighter. Not less important, just easier to carry. Even now, with everything that was hanging in the air between us, he made it feel like we were just two guys figuring it out. No pressure. No drama. Just this. Eventually, the laughter died down, and I shifted onto my side, facing him. "I don't know what this is yet," I said. "I don't either," he replied. "But I know I'm not walking away from it." I nodded, suddenly feeling a little emotional. "I think I need something real right now." Leo reached out, sliding his hand under the back of my neck and pulling me just close enough for our foreheads to touch. Then we'll make it real, he said simply. I didn't realize I'd closed my eyes until I felt his thumb tracing a slow line across my jaw. His touch was steady, grounding, and somehow more intimate than anything we'd done all night. I like this side of you, I said. The serious one. Don't get used to it, he murmured. I'm still a menace in the kitchen and emotionally stunted most days. Perfect, I whispered. You'll fit right in. We stayed like that for a while. Breathing each other in, I could have fallen asleep in that moment and been fine with it. But eventually, I felt his hand drift down to my waist, pulling me in a little closer. Just enough to feel him pressed fully against me. Still okay? He asked, his breath warm against my face. I nodded. Yeah, and I meant it. By the time his hand slid under the hem of my shirt, everything else in my life felt 100 miles away. It wasn't fast, it wasn't rough, it was slow, intentional. Like Leo had all the time in the world and didn't want to miss a single detail. His fingertips grazed the curve of my spine, making my whole body tense and relax at the same time. I can stop, he murmured, lips brushing the side of my face. I shook my head. Don't. That was all he needed. The kiss this time was deeper, more certain. My hands found the back of his neck, the soft hair still damp from his shower. I could feel the warmth of his skin, the way his chest pressed against mine, how he adjusted our bodies like he'd already memorized where we fit. There was a quiet kind of hunger in the way we touched, not desperate, but aching, like we were finally saying all the things we hadn't known how to say out loud. And yeah, it got heated, clothes started to shift, my shirt pulled over my head, his hoodie tossed to the floor. I traced the lines of his back with my palms, feeling the strength there, the steadiness. He ran his fingers down my sides, slow and teasing, until I was squirming under him. Half laughing, half moan, completely wrecked by how careful he was being. You're kind of dangerous, I whispered. Leo raised an eyebrow, hovering above me. Why? Because I think I could really fall for you. He didn't flinch. Instead, he kissed me again, slower this time, more patient. Then he leaned in and said, "Then do." It was stupid. It was probably way too soon. But I felt something click into place at that moment. The way he looked at me wasn't new. I just hadn't let myself see it before. Somewhere between the fourth kiss and the fifth, we started laughing again, about how ridiculous this all was. How I still had gummy worms stuck to the back of my jeans from earlier, how he'd apparently been debating this move for weeks, and nearly chickened out when I passed out with the remote balanced on my chest. Worst timing ever, he said, lips brushing my collarbone. Or the best, I replied, tugging him back down. Eventually, we just stayed there, tangled up, a mess of limbs and half-breaths and whispered nonsense. It didn't need to go further. We weren't rushing towards something. We were just in it. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. I must have dozed off again at some point. When I woke up, the sun was creeping in through the half-open blinds, slicing golden lines across the floor. My head was resting against Leo's chest, his arms still loosely wrapped around me, our legs tangled under the covers. He was breathing slow and steady, still asleep, his face soft in the morning light. For a few seconds, I just lay there watching him. It felt surreal, like we'd cracked open a secret part of our friendship and stepped through without a map. And now, here we were, waking up in a different kind of morning. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from James, the ex. I didn't open it. Leo stirred beside me. You awake? Yeah. He kept his eyes closed. You still glad I climbed on top of you like a total creep? I snorted. You weren't a creep. Little bit, he mumbled. You were passed out, dude. You stopped when I spoke. That's more than I can say for some guys I've dated. He cracked one eye open. Well, I'm honored to be the most respectful accidental spooner you've ever had. I smiled. You hungry? Starving, he said, stretching his arm over his head and making every muscle in his torso flex in a way that was wildly unfair before 9 a.m. But also, don't want to move. Ever. I didn't want to either, but we had to eventually. We made it to the kitchen sometime later. Me in sweatpants and a hoodie, him in last night's joggers, hair sticking up in all directions. He made coffee while I poked through the freezer for anything remotely breakfast-like. "So," I started, flipping a bag of frozen waffles in my hand, "what do we call this?" He didn't even pause. "Us?" I blinked. "That simple?" Leo leaned back against the counter, coffee mug in hand. "Look, we can overthink it if you want. Worry about what this means or how it changes things. But last night wasn't an accident for me. I've been feeling this for a long time. And I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen just because it's inconvenient. It was exactly what I needed to hear. Not poetic, not rehearsed, just honest." I crossed the kitchen and took the coffee from his hand, setting it down before pulling him into a slow, easy kiss. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting for it all morning. "Okay," I said when we finally pulled apart. "Us." Leo smiled against my cheek. "Told you. Best bad idea I've ever had." And somehow, I believed him. Things didn't change overnight. Well, some things did. We stopped pretending. We touched more casually. Lingering glances turned into real ones. Instead of splitting off into our own rooms after a long day, we'd end up curled on the couch together, legs tangled under a blanket, sharing the same bag of popcorn. But other things stayed the same, and I think that's what made it work. Leo still left his shoes in the middle of the hallway like a menace. I still complained about his taste in cereal. He still mocked my playlists, and I still pretended I wasn't checking him out every time he walked past in just a towel. And yet, every now and then, I'd catch him watching me the same way, like he couldn't believe we'd finally stopped dancing around it. A week later, we hosted a few friends for drinks. Nothing wild, just a few close buddies from campus, some beers, some loud stories. Most of them didn't know about us yet, and neither of us had brought it up. We didn't really talk about labels. We didn't need to. But halfway through the night, I passed by him in the kitchen, on the way to grab another round, and he reached out, tugged gently on my hoodie, and kissed me. Just like that. In front of everyone. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even long. But it was enough. The room quieted for a beat. And then our friend Max blurted, "Holy shit, finally." Laughter followed. A few raised eyebrows. A couple of congratulations, and some teasing about who made the first move. "I did," Leo said proudly. "You climbed on top of him while he was asleep." I clarified, deadpan. That got a fresh wave of laughter. Later that night, after everyone left and the apartment fell quiet again, we cleaned up the bottles and pizza boxes in comfortable silence. He came up behind me at the sink, wrapped his arms around my waist, and rested his chin on my shoulder. "You know I wasn't trying to be creepy that night," he said softly. I leaned into him. "I know, you weren't. And if you hadn't said anything, if you'd told me to stop." "But I didn't," I said, turning to face him. He kissed me again, slower this time. "I'm glad you didn't," he whispered. "Me too."